If I wanted to grow a grapevine from a cutting off of this plant, and it certainly wouldn't hurt it because you're going to cut so much off of it, it's just nice to be able to use that rather than throw it in a landfill. But see, all these are budded out. And if I wanted to find me a nice little cane here that was straight, let's just pretend that I wanted to grow that. Well, it's way too much foliage to grow this as a cutting. Now, if it wasn't quite that much, you can always reduce the foliage leaves on the top a little bit. If it just had like 1 or 2 leaves here, you could cut them in half, cut them on an angle or whatever, and you don't need a lot of foliage on the top of your cutting. It wouldn't hurt if it's a little bit. But the buds down at the bottom of your cutting, you need to cut off. This one would almost be a candidate. I could probably do this. What you would do, you would cut this off at the bottom, and these two would turn into roots, and the soil line would be up here. And then that one you'd take off, and you may even take the top one off and just leave that, and that would be enough leaves. You wouldn't want any more leaves than that on a cutting. It would be better if, and these, it's really borderline, you want them maybe not swollen that much, but you tried to make a flowering bud turn into a root. And the problem is, it fell out of my hand, I had to stop it. The problem is it may already have started the process of being a flower, being foliage, and you would cut that off flush, and when you put that in the ground, the hormones in this plant, because it's trying to grow, and it's going to grow vigorously, because in the next few months, that thing right there could be 10 feet long, it will put out roots. That's why it's a lot easier to take a cutting this time of year. There is another way of cutting, and the cutting would be, you would cut this off and let it callus up, and then it would get a little white ring around it, and then the roots would start to come out. You'd put it in, and you'd wrap it up in sphagnum moss or something just to keep it moist, and seal it in a bag. And the place people always talk about putting them on top of your refrigerator. You want somewhere 75, 85 degrees, and let them sit there until they callus up. Once they callus up and start showing roots, then you plant it in soil, and you will get the grapevine from it. It's just easier to do in the spring because naturally, hormonally, this wants to grow. And as long as you put 2 of them under and 1 or 2 growing above it, you'll get a grapevine. This grapevine on the right is not growing as fast as that one. It gets a little less sunlight, and it's not as big a trunk. They're both the same age. We bought these, they were probably almost a 2-year-old plant when we put them in the ground. But see, these buds haven't really swollen up. That one might not even try to root, but that one would root. And then you have the foliage buds up here. So you could cut this off below that one, and you would actually cut that bud off with your clippers. And that would take away the vegetative part, and then where you cut it off would produce the roots. And then these will produce the leaves that would be your new grapevine. And it is conceivable, although that one looks like it's dead, but it's still a little green in there. You could also cut this one off and cut it off here and plant that in the ground, and that would send out roots. It's a lot easier to do this if it was earlier in the year, and they hadn't. If all the buds were really small, less than that, that's when you want to take your cuttings. But this warm weather has just popped everything out, and it's kept it from doing it, being able to get good canes to cut. Also on these, a cutting that you take to grow a new one needs to be about the size of a pencil up to maybe 3/4 of an inch. No less than a pencil. that's about a pencil size, so you could probably get away with using it pretty easy. Cut there. This is this piece here. Since it's not really blossoming there, I might be able to get roots out of that. Cut that off on an angle. Cut that one off, stick it in the soil. Cut that on an angle and stick that one in the soil. I might get 3 out of that. It's worth a try. All it is a little root and hormone and a little bit of potting soil. Let me finish tying this up and I'll step back and show you what it does. I made the angle cut on that one. See it on a 45? That would leave a 45 on this. So I need to know which way's up. So I cut that one flat. Then I will put that one down there and cut it on an angle and cut the upper section flat on the bottom and cut a angle on the top. You got to know which way's up because they look a lot alike. That's 3 more. They're square on the bottom, angled on the top. Now this one is close to that shoot coming out, and you don't really want to get into that joint, so I tried to cut that above it as close as I could.